All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 360 Sports Show. We're coming to you live through Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch here on Pi Day 2021, March 14th. Hope you guys are finding us here live. Hopefully not suffering from that lost hour of sleep last night. So the clocks have sprung ahead, so we lose the hour last night, but now we've got sunshine for more of the day. So who can argue with that? So good morning. Once again, I'm Andrew Pizzella. You can reach me anytime throughout the show here in the comment section of any of the live streams, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. You can also always email the show at any time throughout the live broadcast or the week. That is the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com. You can reach me anytime through there. And yeah, away we go. So a busy week in sports, and it's kind of one of those. This has been one of those weeks where we're just preparing for a lot of the big things to happen. NFL free agency will really begin in earnest this week. March Madness is coming. We're making the playoff push in the NHL and in the NBA. Trade deadlines for both quickly approaching. So a lot of the preparations for things happening, but also a lot of action and news to get through. And we're going to start right away in the NFL. So the big news out of the week is, at least locally, and we're going to start here and jump off from everything else. And if you have any thoughts on this, drop them in the comment section. Cam Newton is going to be, at least it would appear, the starting quarterback. Right as of right now, he is the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots again, because there's nobody else that's on the roster that's going to threaten him. Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham could not take that job from him last year. He has signed back. Now, initial reports said Cam Newton signs 1 year, $14 million deal, and everybody lost their minds because you just saw the $14 million. I think some people were kind of expecting this to happen. Oh, Cam, we'll probably re-sign him as an insurance policy on the cheap. People were expecting cheap, not $14 million. But you have to let the dust settle, and when the dust has settled, this is what we're left with. Cam Newton, his base salary will be $1.5 million. He got a $2 million signing bonus, and he has a $1.4 million roster bonus, which breaks down into, I think it's around like $93,000 per game, something like that. So basically, he'll get this for being active, essentially, being on the roster. So his cap hit is going to be $5 million. Out of the $60 million that the Patriots had to kind of just ensure that at least bare minimum you can bring back your starting quarterback from last year, that's not bad. If at worst, or even let's just say at best, you think Cam Newton is not a starter, he should be the backup. We should draft somebody. They should still go out and make another move. You look at what backup quarterbacks get paid, the real good ones, it's more than that. It's 8, 13, 11, even 14. I mean, that's kind of where, when starting caliber quarterbacks are getting $40 million, paying 1.5, while it does maybe tell you the quality of the quarterback you're getting, at least the guy knows the system. You could work yourself up into running it back and putting more time around him, and at least you have something. They had nothing before they brought him back. In signing him for this money, the rest of it, incentives. Which, guess what? If the Patriots make and win the Super Bowl with Cam Newton, you're not going to complain about paying him $14 million. It's not going to matter. So the rest of it, tied up in incentives. So it's really just $5 million, which is a bargain. Even for the worst... Who's the worst starting quarterback in the league last year? People would probably say Cam Newton. I guess... Still, starting caliber money in the NFL is usually in the 10s to 20s of millions of dollars. So paying him $5 is a steal. And what this does, I don't think the Patriots are done. I'm going to reserve being mad about this until they say, don't draft anybody or don't swing a trade for somebody. And it truly is just Cam, we'll add some talent around it, and we'll run it back. There's some logic to that, which is that the Patriots are not just a quarterback away, that they need to fill the rest of this roster. And so giving up multiple picks, I think Jimmy Garoppolo I would do that for because of the history, because of the familiarity, and because of his talent. And you hope that bringing him back here, maybe he can shake the injury bug and that you could really build your team. That's the one guy, and he's not going to be as expensive as some of these other guys that they've been talking about. So if you were just going to bring in a vet off the street, just bring back the same vet. Why not? For cheap. I'll be mad if they don't do anything else, though. You have to at least add a young guy. Draft one in the first or second round to at least put behind Cam. Because I think if Stidham couldn't crack it last year with how bad Cam played, I think we'd expect Cam to play better. So there's definitely no way Stidham sees the field this year. So you got to assume Stidham is a lost cause. So I'll reserve being like, there are people already. What are we doing? The season's over. You're just flushing another season down the tubes. You can't throw the ball. You won't be able to evaluate your talent. That could all be true. Clearly, they have faith in the guy to bounce back. He has faith in himself, and they're paying him essentially nothing. So for now, they put somebody on the roster, and guess what? It makes them seem less desperate. Let's say, even though the Niners have said, yes, we're not moving for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's our guy. If they are talking to the Patriots behind the scenes, and they're looking at the Patriots saying, you got 0 quarterbacks on your roster that are starting caliber before signing Cam Newton. The Niners could basically demand anything. Oh, we want Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson. Well, that's our starting point. Because they know the Patriots are desperate. At least now, the Patriots, the way they've talked all offseason by bringing Cam back now, they're kind of just doing what they said they would do, which is they're sending the signal that they're happy to run it back, which obviously terrifies fans. But I think, at least in the short term here, between free agency and then the draft coming up and the ability to make trades, might help them. Because teams might say, oh, God, they are really willing to do this, huh? Okay, well, if the best we're going to get is Stephon Gilmore in a third-round pick, I guess we'll take that, instead of trying to bend the Patriots over the barrel for everything, knowing that they're desperate to make the trade. So, Cam Newton, for now, is the starter. This is kind of, in a way, it is the worst-case scenario because people wanted to see an upgrade, and we still might. And I think that if Christian were here, I'd be really... So Christian is not joining us today. He is doing much more important things, which is to go and get his first dose of his vaccine. So Christian texted me. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to make the show. I got the appointment to go get the vaccine. I don't know if I'll be ready or not. I said, dude, don't even worry about it. The 2 shows now you've missed was 1, your wedding day, and 2, to get the vaccine. I'd say those aren't even excuses. Those are the most valid reasons in the world to miss the 360 Sports Show. Really happy for Christian being able to go get the vaccine. Dos numero uno. We've been very pro-vaccine on this show. Obviously, we've had to do the show like this, separate, for over a year now, because of the pandemic. And so everybody doing their part, it's been a year of mask wearing and social distancing. And now you have a chance to end it if you just go and get your vaccine. If everybody can do their part there. It's really easy. You go, you sit down, and they stick you with the needle. You're done. You go home, you sleep for a day, and you're good to go. A couple weeks later, you go do it again, and you're all set. So good for Christian. I'm glad that he's able to get his first dose. Hopefully I'll be getting my first dose soon. And on that day, Christian can have the show all to himself. So, but I'd be interested to see how he feels. I feel like he'd probably be, I don't know if he'd be full rage mode on this Cam Newton deal right now, because I'm willing to wait and see what else happens before I go just totally apoplectic on the Patriots. But I like it. I like the deal, and that's not a popular position right now. I like the deal because you need to build the team. The team has more problems than just a starting quarterback. So for now, at least you know you're bringing back the guy who was here last year, that was great in the locker room, that did bring a great work ethic. Yes, was his play on the field subpar? Totally. Was the rest of the roster pretty crap too? Yeah. And they were still a handful of plays, granted some of them were plays that Cam screwed up, away from being a 9 or 10 win team last year with how bad it was. So I think if they bring Cam back, it's 1 year. It's 1 year. And they continue to build the rest of the team. They could go the way of the Colts here, where they just kept building it and building it and building it. And they went from Andrew Luck, or he was banged up, so it was a whole bunch of nobodies, to Phillip Rivers, you went Jacoby Brissett and Brian Hoyer, to Phillip Rivers, to now Carson Wentz. And that's kind of seeming to be their long, short-term solution. 2-3 year window with a team, with a roster that is Super Bowl ready, and just needed to fill the quarterback this year. Aside from Garoppolo, it's not worth, with the state of this Patriots roster, it is not worth giving up more than you have to just get any quarterback. They're just bringing back the guy who was here last year on very cheap money, and I think they've been signaling for a while that they're just going to build the rest of the team. I still would like to see them sign or to draft a quarterback, identify somebody. It could be Mac Jones. It could be somebody at 15, but I'd be happy if they went elsewhere at 15 and got a guy the way they found Garoppolo in the second round, found that guy in the second or third round. And we'll get into in a couple of weeks when we have Brad Kelly on the program to break down the NFL draft. He'll probably have a guy. Last year, he nailed it with the draft. And at least, and obviously once you get past the second round, it's like it's impossible to try and project what's going to happen. His first and second rounds were pretty dead on. And his assessment of the players and where they would go and where they would fit, all of it was very, very well put together. So I'm sure he has a guy or guys that if the Patriots decide not to go after any of these top quarterbacks in the draft, whether to move up or if one of them slips, there's a guy somewhere in the second round who's like the typical, you'll hear the name, you'll see where he's from, like, oh God, yep, that's the Patriot, that's the typical Patriots pick. So excited to talk to Brad to find out who those people could be. In the meantime, this was a smart move. And smart team building isn't sexy, but it's the way Belichick and the Patriots have done things for a long time. And they clearly, I don't think he's feeling any pressure from Brady winning a Super Bowl to just go out and make a flashy move. They're just going to keep building the team. And we'll see. Once free agency comes and goes, and if they don't, they have the cap space now. They got to go out and fill the needs. So that they shouldn't just, this is not like in years past where they had Brady and they had a couple of stacked positions and they could say, well, let's just keep saving cap space. You're in a position now where you really need to add talent. Go out and add talent. So free agency begins very shortly. We'll see who if they decide to go after anybody and throw money around like they should. That's when you can, if it's Cam, if it's run it back with Cam and crap. If that's what the Patriots roster is next year, then everybody has a right to be livid. And guess what? The Patriots will know they've got problems because guess what? People won't watch. They want to have fans back in the stadium. People won't go. People will not go to watch crap. People barely want to go to games as it is right now because of everything you miss out on. It's nice to be home. The comforts of home and red zone and your own cooking and not having to pay $80 for like 2 beers and some hot dogs. So if it's Cam and crap, people aren't going to show up. And maybe they didn't feel it last year because nobody could go. You'll feel it this year. And it'll be a lot different when you can pump in the cheering. And instead of being able to pump in the cheering, you're going to have to be trying to drone out the boos. So we'll see what the Patriots do here. Hopefully they are aggressive. They haven't been aggressive yet at quarterback. They need to be aggressive in all the other areas of the team because they do have incredible deficiencies that they need to fill. Cam wasn't the only quarterback who got a contract last week. Dak Prescott got paid. Let me go ahead and pull up his contract just so we have the entire details of it. The Cowboys had to do this. It had to be done because it's just part of doing business in the NFL. You have to pay your starting quarterbacks. I disagree with how they went about this because they basically have argued with Dak for like the past 3 years about an extension, and they just wanted to franchise him and keep kicking it down the road. And now you basically have to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league when you could have just negotiated something with him years ago first. I think the Cowboys did it backwards. They wanted to sign Elliott. They wanted to give Elliott his contract first and then work on Dak, which I think is backwards in today's NFL. If you have the quarterback, if you have your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, sign him. As soon as you have the ability to extend him, just do it then. Kicking the can down the road because what? You think the guy might have a sucky year so you can like bargain with him? Won't happen. Won't happen. Any of these guys that think that if they know they're the guy for the team, you're just going to have to pay them whatever market value is at that moment. The instant you get to sign them, like some of these guys' contracts that they signed 3 years ago that were going like, oh my God, this is stupid money. Why? Now it looks like a bargain. That's how crazy the quarterback market has gotten. So as soon as you have the ability to extend these guys, if Dak Prescott came right after his rookie year and was like, I want to sign a 5-year extension right now, the Cowboys may have been like, oh God, we don't want to give him that much money. Just do it. Because 3 years down the road, now look what they're paying him. And on top of that, they're paying a whole big chunk of change to a bell cow running back, which is just not needed in the NFL anymore. You need a running game. I think you need to have the ability to run the ball. But look at the teams that have won Super Bowls recently. They don't have this franchise running back. When's the last time? I mean, you look at the Saquon Barkleys, the Adrian Petersons, the Ezekiel Elliott's. These guys, they're great running back. Todd Gurley, before he started to break down. These guys are great. It never works out paying them because running back, the shelf life is really, really short. And they break down and they don't last. And then you're dedicating a whole chunk of money towards a position which is just easily replaceable. The teams that have had the most success, they just keep turning over their running back spots. They maybe give a guy a franchise tag for a year if you're Super Bowl ready, like the Steelers did a couple of times with Le'Veon Bell. And then they were like, okay, we're good. See ya. And most of these other teams, like the Giants, they've paid Saquon. It is what it is. Or they're gonna have to extend him. I'm not sure exactly what the details of his contract are at this exact moment. But that's a situation where, for their future, do you love him? Yeah. If the Giants were, a player or two away and they were ready to go to a Super Bowl, maybe you overpay. Just like, come, let's keep it together. The Cowboys paying Zeke what you did before you paid Dak. Now it just looks twice as worse. So I don't know. Maybe Cowboys fans feel differently. I just look at it and say, oh man, you did it backwards. Sign the quarterback. He's going to be part of your team longer. Get him on the deal. If you give a bad contract to Elliott, he's going to be gone in 2-3 years. And you can rearrange it so you could cut him at the end. But here's Dak's contract. 4 years, $160 million. That number is just mind-boggling. These quarterback numbers are mind-boggling. Here's the crazy one. His base salary this year is $9 million, $13 million signing bonus, a $22 million cap hit. But because of the guaranteed money in this deal, his dead cap this year is $95 million. That's absurd. Let's see if I can pull up the cap for the Cowboys. $95 million. So say something crazy. They decide to cut Dak in the middle of the season, which would never happen. But let's see what the Cowboys cap this year. NFL salary cap. It's half. It's more than half More than half of their salary is dead cap money for Dak Prescott. It's insane. Now, here's the thing. This Prescott contract, and let's just go off the cap hits, right? Because the salaries, the bonuses, everything else, let's just look at the cap hit. $22 million this year, $33 next year, $44 million the year after that, and then $47 million cap hit in 2024. That is bonkers. But people have speculated, does Jerry Jones know something that the rest of us don't, or that the rest of us can guess at, which is that salary cap's going to go up. Everybody's seen the TV deals. Everybody knows the money that's being thrown around. We talked about this last week between Amazon and the NFL and the networks, and that TV money is coming. And so let's do this. Let's load up this contract. Let's make it affordable in the beginning to fit into this year's cap, and then it goes boom and explodes towards the end. Now, after 2024, there's a potential out. I'm not sure if that's like a void year, if that is player or a team option. It's a void year. So they strapped on void years at the end of this. So this void year thing has become the new fad. And I wonder how long does the NFL care? You know, hey, the money comes due eventually. Look what happened with Tom Brady and the Patriots last year. He signed that fake 3-year contract with the Patriots, was really a 1-year contract. And then when he decided to leave, instead of renegotiate, all that money came home to roost last year. And the Patriots paid Tom Brady $20-something million last year to go win a Super Bowl in Tampa. That's the one. That's what hurts the most. Not that Tom left, not that he won, that the Patriots were still paying him money last year that counted against their cap, which prevented them from adding things to their team last year. So that's where this, I mean, I get in the end, it's not like it's fake money and that teams aren't eventually having to pony up and pay the cap gods, as it were. We'll see how often and if the NFL ever decides to address this, because eventually, right now, this is like 2025 and 2026 void years. And, you know, but what happens when some guy signs like a contract where it's like all of the money is in the void years and they just keep renegotiating it every year and kicking the can down the road. And, you know, some team is basically paying a 52-man roster like $3 million. Oh, 190 something of it is tied up in void year money that we've like tacked on like 13 years down the road. Eventually, someone's going to try and do that. It'll probably be either Bill Belichick or John Harbaugh. Somebody like that will try and game the system and push the limits. But for now, it happens. The void year. I don't think anybody had ever heard of that. At least in NFL salaries until a couple years ago when Tom Brady and Drew Brees started doing it. Which let's kind of come full circle here to this. All this money is being thrown around, and we've had the discussion: is it getting out of hand? The quarterback market is it too big? The Cowboys are paying all this money to Dak Prescott. The Chiefs are obviously paying Pat Mahomes. We know what they're paying him, an exorbitant contract. All these teams are throwing just handfuls, buckets of money at the quarterback position. And it's not going to matter. Want to know why? Because a 43-year-old quarterback just signed an extension down in Tampa Bay, and he's going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's not going to matter. Dak Prescott, take your $43 million. Tom Brady, who is 43, going to be 44, is going to go win the Super Bowl again. It's absurd. Brady signed an extension. Again, the whole void years thing. They basically renegotiate. They kick the can down the road, and they free up some cap space this year. And the Bucs are going to be able to not just keep their team together, which was obviously already good enough to win a Super Bowl in year one, which was just remarkable because Usually when you put teams together like that, it's hard in 1 year to turn it around and win a Super Bowl. On top of being in a pandemic. Well, they did. They figured it out in season, kind of not even in season. They figured it out in the playoffs. They righted the ship, so to speak, and got to and won a Super Bowl in year one. They're going to be better next year, just bringing back the same roster because of that experience, because of Brady, and because of just the chemistry will be even more so between everybody on that team. And now Brady's renegotiating. Guys like Chris Godwin are going to want to take hometown discounts to come back. They're going to be able to add. They're going to add to that team. It's a joke. The rest of the league is gonna spend through the roof to try and catch them. I don't know if anybody will. I really don't know. And guess what? The Bucs have the easiest schedule in the league next year. The easiest. Brady's going for 19-0, folks. That's what this is about. Winning Super Bowls 8 and 9, yes, very much on the table. Which again, I can't even believe I'm saying those numbers. It's just absurd how much Brady is lapping the field of the competition. They're going for 19-0. They are. They won their Super Bowl, and now they're going to try and stack this team even more than it was already seemed to be stacked. There's talk that Brady wants to go somehow find a way to get Odell Beckham Jr. there. Oh my gosh. That team is going to be stacked. And they're probably going to win the Super Bowl again. Let me see if I can pull up. Because this just happened, they might not have the exact details on his contract. Let's see. Already do. See, this is the stuff that Brady did with the Patriots. Guess what Brady is making this year? Base salary. $1 million. $1 million for not only the best quarterback in NFL history, potentially one of the best players in league history, your Super Bowl MVP, and the greatest of all time, is accepting a $1 million base salary. Now, he's got an $8 million signing bonus, but he's going to count toward $9 million towards their cap this year. This is how you do it, folks. I hope everybody else is paying attention. People want to know what's Brady's secret. The guy has still gotten paid handsomely throughout his career. Very handsomely. Just from the teams. Just from playing. Not to mention endorsements, other deals, and things off the field, and getting paid that way. But he gets paid. $9 million is not like, I would gladly take $9 million. I would take 1/10 of that right now. Most people in this country are just begging for like 1/100th of that right now. So he still gets paid. You don't have to be the highest paid quarterback in the league to be the best. And this is what Brady has done his entire career. When he knows he has a chance to win, and maybe that's because winning is the most important thing to him. He still wants to get paid. I think he was the highest paid quarterback once. I think in 2011, when they renegotiated a contract after that MVP year, he was the highest paid quarterback for that one season. But other than that, it's never been him. The highest paid quarterback does not win the Super Bowl. Barely even gets there. So guys like Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes, they signed the big contract, which is great. You go get yours. Dak Prescott. I don't know. I mean, Mahomes is really good. He won the Super Bowl and he got back to another one. But what's going to happen now and we've said this, what happens when the roster around you starts to crumble? Look at Russell Wilson in Seattle. They got to those first 2 Super Bowls with him on a rookie deal, with a lot of those guys on rookie deals. And then what'd they do? They overpaid to try and keep the Legion of Boom together. It fell apart. That defense has not been the same since. Not even close. And now you're paying Russell Wilson through the nose. And guess what? He's unhappy because they haven't been able to make moves to put more, better pieces on the offensive line, maybe on the defense. And he says that he wants to have a say. But it's not about them not getting good players. It's about them not having cap space. Dude, pick a side. Do you want to be the highest paid quarterback, or do you want us to put a roster around you? Brady has always opted for, he's not like he's walking down to the house of the poor, but he's taking less consistently throughout his career so that the team can go out and put pieces around him. Now, maybe some of the rub in New England was that Belichick took that money and went and put it on defense and special teams instead of giving them more offensive weapons. Instead of saying, listen, Tom, we're going to live with you making chicken salad out of chicken crap, and we're going to invest in the defense. At least in Tampa, he knows I'm going to take a pay cut. Maybe this is how we get OBJ in here. So this is how you do it. If you care about winning multiple Super Bowls, and maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't. He won one. He might feel like that's good enough. I'll put up numbers in the regular season. I just want to get all the money. That could be it seems like that's his MO. Very well could be. He said that he's going to bend the Packers over the barrel this year for as much money as he can because he's angry at them. Go for it, dude. But understand you're probably never going to get to or win another Super Bowl again with that mentality. People said the same thing about Andrew Luck. Look what happened to him. He wanted that huge extension at the time. Great for him. They couldn't field an offensive line, which effectively ended his career because of how many hits he took. So, and they put that all on the GM. But what's the GM supposed to do if he has no money to spend to go out and get quality players? We'll see what happens with the rest of these teams paying all this money to quarterbacks. And you're just going to have to sit back and watch as a 43, 44, then 45-year-old quarterback goes out and wins his 7th, 8th, and 9th Super Bowl while taking $1 million base salary, $2 million base salary, $8 million base salary, and doing it. So, question. So, as I said, comment section. If you have any comments, concerns, would love to know what you guys think about all this stuff. And if you're listening to this, we're live on Sundays, 11 to 1, roughly. Maybe a little shorter today without Christian. But if you're listening to us live, you can always jump into the comment sections of any of the live streams. If you're listening to this as a podcast, which we put out right after the conclusion of the live programming, we put the podcast out through Sounder FM. You can get it there or wherever you get your podcasts from. You can always email questions to the360sportshow@gmail.com, either during the live broadcast or throughout the week, and we can get to those on the next show. So this is from Pete from Gansett. How long before the average, getting an early start to St. Patrick's Day, before the average cable customer who really pays the NFL QB salaries decides to pull the plug, then what happens? Yeah, I mean, this was part of what I was saying last week with the NFL trying to hitch their wagons to the streaming thing. I don't know if they see that coming. That's why they're like, hey, we're going to give Amazon the Thursday Night Football deal. Fox, CBS, NBC, if you want it, pay us twice. They're really trying to angle into the streaming thing because more people are going that route. They're not purchasing traditional cable. Most people now, especially in my age demographic, the 20s to 30s, and now even people in their 40s, are preferring to just say, we'll pay for internet, and then we'll pay for Netflix and Amazon, or Netflix and Disney, or YouTube TV, and we'll get all the channels we want through that, and for a fraction of the cost of cable. So the NFL is going to have to quickly get in bed in those networks, which is what they're doing, or those platforms, which is what they're doing with Amazon. Now I don't know how the money will shake out, because when you're watching YouTube TV, you're watching still NBC, CBS, Fox. So how does that affect those networks, which are broadcast? You can get those for free. You can go get an antenna. How does that affect them? Now, it'd be advertising. How does that? They'd have to change their analytics. They'd have to say, well, this is the streaming analytics. Because you're going to look at the traditional Nielsen ratings, maybe if everybody's switching to streaming, and if they're not accounting for that, it's going to look like nobody's watching, and then advertisers are going to pull. So it really all comes back to, because on the broadcast networks for the NFL, the money is in the advertising, so they just need to know who's watching and where. The bigger problem will be is not with the networks. It's if people just stop watching because of the product on the field. So people have been switching from cable for years now. And because of the network, now where this is a problem is for the other sports switching. Like NHL, we'll get to this, is going to be on ESPN now. A lot of other sports are on cable networks, which you can't get on streaming services. That's a big fight right now. NESN, you can't get on YouTube TV anymore. So people who want to watch the Bruins have to pay for cable, which is angering a lot of people that's the fact. So if you want ESPN, I think you can get that now on YouTube TV. But what happens if they decide that that's going to be a cable-only property now too? That's when it'll get messy. The broadcast, the NFL's made money for years on the three major networks, which people could have gotten for free anyways. Now it's things like Red Zone. It's things like the NFL Network. If people stop watching those, obviously that's going to hurt them. I think the other stations are going to feel the crunch more from people cutting the cord. The NFL will have a problem if they can't accurately track their numbers. And advertisers start saying, well, nobody's watching on TV, and they just leave because they don't have the numbers. The Nielsen people came to my door a couple months ago. They were like, hey, you've been selected. And it was like 10 years ago. If I had cable, that was like always my dream as a kid. Like, oh, the Nielsen people are going to come. This is awesome. Maybe they'll pick us. I had to say no because, well, they said no to me because we stream. We have YouTube TV. They're like, oh, okay, sorry. So I don't know. Would the NFL have to start paying YouTube for analytics? I don't even know. I mean, I'd assume it's Google and stuff. I mean, I assume they know exactly how many minutes I've been watching what station and how often and all that. So the NFL is going to have to start getting analytics from that stuff to show to advertisers, hey, no, people aren't watching on TV, but they're watching on the internet. Like, here's the numbers. This is why you should still be advertising with us because that's where the money is. The money's in the advertising. I'd say people themselves not watching, which could be the bigger problem, on any platform will come back to things like the rule changes, some of the rule changes they're proposing. If we spend more time reviewing pass interference and reviewing roughing the passer, and the NFL's like, this is great. We can take more commercial breaks to sell more ad space. Well, guess what? People are going to stop watching. People are anytime, and the thing is, like, I don't even know the numbers. How do they know? I mean, most of the time, and hey, Google maybe could tell you this. They go to review something, it's like, oh God, pause. Ugh. I'll come back. I'll fast forward through it, and you'll walk away. Or just, oh, they're reviewing it. Ugh. I'll be back. Let me go to the kitchen. Let me go get something. I'll be back. People don't watch most people, aside from the Super Bowl, don't watch the commercials anyways. So the analytics start to get really, as a wise man once said, there's lies, there's no good lies, there's dirty, rotten lies, there's no good, dirty, rotten lies, there's no good, dirty, rotten, awful, despicable lies, and then there's statistics. So the stats, the viewing stats for streaming NFL, who knows what you could make of those? Because the computer doesn't know if you're sitting there or if you're not. It probably could tell you if you paused and then fast forwarded through the commercials. And maybe if it does, if that data is in there, again, advertisers may look at that and go, ick. Yeah, we're not paying $10 million for a 30-second spot 5 times a week when people are just going and fast forwarding right through it. What is that worth to us? That's the bigger problem, is fans just not wanting to put up with the product and stopping watching. I think the money is already out of hand with the QB salaries. It has been for a while. Not going to stadiums, that's the bigger thing. People, I think because the TV money is so big, we underestimate how much money teams actually just get from the traditional gate. People coming to the game and spending money at the arena. You looked at some of the numbers this year. There's teams that lost a lot of money. That's still going to be a thing this year. They may say, packed house, come on in. Will everybody still come in? Will they still pack a house? How What will that look like in a depending on where COVID is come the fall? And even still, attendance was declining in most. I mean, Patriots didn't suffer this. Want to know why? Because they were good. Because they were winning Super Bowls. Again, if it's Cam and crap this year, how many people are going to turn up then? How many people are going to pay $300 for 300 section seats and sit up at the tip top there next to the lightning rods? I don't know. That's where these teams have to. Sportico did a really great panel a little over maybe 2 months ago now about the future of the fan experience in sports. And this is a major concern, not just for the NFL, but for a lot of sports leagues about how to get people to come to the games, especially in a post-COVID world where people are going to be more concerned about mass gatherings and being in public indoor spaces for things other than baseball and the NFL. Indoors too at some NFL, at both sports. So indoors and outdoor gatherings, mass gatherings. How are they going to handle this? And they're looking at a lot of things. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. In-game betting is coming. This is their ace up the sleeve for these teams in these leagues. They want to make it so you can come, you sit in your seat, you're on your phone, you log into the in-arena Wi-Fi so that you're on their network, because that's where you have to be to do it. You have to be in your seat. Or maybe there's a little kiosk right in front of you at your seat, and real time, hey, 3rd and 5 from the 45-yard line, over under, yes or no, they'll make it. And you can lay, it's only $2. Yeah. How addicting would that be? There's people that would lose a lot of money. There's people that would win money. There's people that would lose a lot of money. And what would happen? Maybe they say, hey, ticket price, instead of paying $300 to come to the game, it's only $80 to sit anywhere. You get a credit to play the game. Oh, okay, $20. I'll play the game. And then once you start playing, it's gambling. People get I see it. You see it. Everybody's seen it. Everybody's seen that person who, oh man, they bust at the blackjack table. And then they leave. They walk away. And you think, oh, not going to see that guy again. His night's done. And then you see him standing in the corner at the ATM. He's pulling out the kid's college fund. And then he's back. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Don't do this to yourself. That's what's going to start happening at games. The in-arena betting thing is coming. That's the little secret weapon here that all these teams, they're banking on to be able to get people back in the stadium. And they'll offer deals. Hey, I know you purchased 2 seats for $100 each, but we'd like to give you a $20 credit towards our gambling platform in the stadium if you'd like. And who wouldn't say, sure, I'll pay $80 instead if you're just going to give me a credit. And then you're going to use the credit, and then you're going to get addicted to it. Who knows? The NFL could go from having concussion lawsuits to gambling lawsuits in a matter of 10 years. So anyway, that was a bit of a rabbit hole. But that kind of wraps up the NFL coverage. Free agency starts soon. Next week we're gonna have tons of moves to break down and sort through from all the teams. Because there's so much smoke right now. It's honestly, if you have any specific NFL questions, free agent questions right now, drop them in the comment section. But there's honestly so much smoke right now. It's not even worth sifting through all of it. Just me. If you have something specific you want to know, drop it in the comment section. But for now, we're going to move on to our college focus. Let me adjust my headphones here. To our college focus. And March Madness Selection Sunday. That's today. 6 o'clock tonight. The NCAA will start announcing teams for the tournament. And what is sure to be the strangest tournament ever. Because just when they announce the field, that's not it. It's not over. Because there's still going to be 6 days before games start. And until that happens, every team is replaceable. Basically, you're going to have teams get selected tonight. You're in. You made it. You're in the bracket. We already know the automatic qualifiers. We all know the bubble teams. And so there'll be teams that are in. They fill out the bracket. Normally, it's done. Good to go. Print the bracket tomorrow in the paper. Go pick it up. Fill it in. And we're done. I wouldn't do that because there's bound to be issues. And here's what the NCAA is going to do. They're going to pick the bracket tonight. There's going to be a whole slew of teams that are essentially, guess what? You're on standby, including Duke. Crazily enough, Duke, who was going to need to basically win out and win to get an automatic qualifier, or maybe they had made enough of an argument if they could get to a conference final that maybe they could sneak in with an at-large, despite, for them, what has been an awful season. Because if somebody has to bow out because of COVID, because the standard is you have to test negative 7 consecutive days, everybody in your traveling party, to go to Indianapolis to be in the bubble for the tournament. If an issue crops up with a team, too bad, so sad, you're out. And another team, the priority is to bring a team from that conference. So crazily, Gonzaga, who everybody expects to be a number 1 seed, if they have a COVID issue Tuesday, they're out. And some team who could have been like the 65th ranked team in the nation, below, could be like the 100th ranked team in the nation, but was the next best team in the conference, boop, they come right on in. They can come right on in and they'd be a number 1 seed. They would just slap that team. They're not going to reseed the tournament. They would just go whoop right in where Gonzaga was. Pete from Gansett says Duke is out COVID positive. I know. But the thing is, from when they stopped playing, they will have had the potential to test negative 7 days in a row. They're one of the standby teams. So they're not even going to they're not going to get selected tonight. Duke is acting, their AD said we're done, this ends our season. But it really hasn't. Because if they're not going to get on I'd be stunned if anybody in that selection committee decides to sneak them in, even as a play-in team. I'd be stunned. So Duke is going to be on the outside looking in. But if there's a couple of COVID issues with teams and they need to start pulling from the pool of standby teams, Duke could still get in. Because they had COVID, their issue was long enough ago now, before the cutoff. Wednesday is when they need to start, or Thursday is when they would bring it, is like the last day they would bring in the substitutes. So there's enough time for Duke to put together a travel party of people who were not close contacts and can be testing them negative right along now until the deadline passes when, hey, once the teams are in the bubble, that's it. You're playing with those teams. They won't be bringing people in from the outside. It's still plausible. It's crazy. This tournament is going to be the most March Madness. It's going to be the maddest March ever because of this. So the protocol, once they seed everybody, once the tournament is decided, the bracket might not be settled until Thursday. Because of potential COVID issues and testing issues. And it's zero tolerance. Sorry, you're out. New team in. Once they set it and you're in the bubble, if you have an issue crop up on your team and you can't play a game, you're done. And the other team just advances by the no play rule. The tournament is going to be bonkers. Now, hopefully they don't have any issues in a bubble because the good thing of a bubble is you're contained, right? The point is that you're in here and you're protecting yourself. You're also secluding yourself in the bubble, and if it gets into the bubble, how badly and how quickly could it spread? We never saw that happen in the NHL or the NBA. They were able to keep it out, so we don't know what's the backside of a bubble. What happens if a team brings it in? Would it spread like wildfire? And that's what I said last week. What would the NCAA do? They say they're not going to postpone games. They're not going to postpone the tournament. They're not going to slow things up. They're just going to plow ahead. There may be, I'm sure, behind closed doors, they're talking about the contingencies of, okay, what if like every team tests positive? What do we do? Hopefully that doesn't happen. But it could happen. Anything could happen. So, yeah, Duke. Yeah, they tested positive, but it was long enough ago that they could test negative. They could test a travel party negative 7 straight days. And if they're called upon. Now, here's what happened. Because of some of the upsets along the way here, there are other teams that would have been top seeded, should have gotten the AQ, and now they're in the pool of needing to get at-large bids. Thanks in large part to Georgetown, who had an amazing Big East tournament run. Big shout out and congratulations to Patrick Ewing and Georgetown. Unbelievable tournament run. This is why it made me so mad that PC had an absolutely despicable loss to DePaul, 4-win DePaul, because this year really could have been anybody's year, and still is. We could have a true Cinderella story this year, and a no-name team could win the NCAA tournament. It really is going to be a tournament unlike any other. Teams are going to come out of nowhere. Not that Patrick Ewing and Georgetown came out of nowhere, but they weren't looked at as a team that was going to run through the Big East. They topped Villanova, the top-ranked team in the conference, and they absolutely rout and destroy Creighton. I think they had like a 26-3 run at one point in that game. They just decimated and blew away Creighton. So really awesome for them. But what does that do? That knocks out some of the other top teams that were expected to get AQs, and now they're in the pool looking for at-large bids. So teams like Duke, who tested positive, teams that are on the outside looking in, now are even more so on the fringe because of situations like that. But hey, great story for Patrick Ewing in Georgetown. I'm really excited now to see what Georgetown can do in the tournament. Is this the top for them, or is that the type of run that ignites a team to go on one of these deep runs in the tournament? There's going to be teams that come out of nowhere. There's going to be teams that have bad days. I mean, it's the nature of the tournament anyway. I think you could potentially see more number one seeds get upset early in the tournament this year than ever before, just because of how topsy-turvy things have been. Last college basketball note, I just wanted to give another shout-out to the Cal Baptist women's basketball. They are the only undefeated team in women's basketball. However, they will not be playing in the NCAA tournament. They're going to the NIT. Why? Because the NCAA has a rule that when you are a D2 school or any school and you elevate to D1, you can't participate in the NCAA tournament for 4 years. This is year 3 for them. So they get punished for being too good too soon. They won their conference. They are 24-0, and they're going to the NIT. It's unfortunate. It's one of those quirky rule things that normally would never be an issue, and I understand a bit of the logic. The NCAA, wanting teams to, because you don't want teams just deciding to jump up to D1. There's already enough D1 schools. This huge pool of D1 schools. So making it a little less incentivized to just say oh, let's just jump up for 1 year. You need to come up and you need to kind of establish yourself. And most times that's what happens. Nobody's going to get there in the first 4 years. Well, here comes Cal Baptist women's basketball, 24-0. They have to go play in the NIT. But it's one of those silly little rule things. I don't think it's necessarily it's unfair for them in this instance. I don't think it's an unfair rule in general, but sucks for them. But just wanted to make sure that they got their due. Great season. They'll probably go win the NIT. They'll probably finish with an undefeated season, but never get to play in the NCAAs. And they won't next year either. I think if there's anything the NCAA could do with this rule is maybe change it to 3 years. That way, you can recruit a freshman class with the hopes of, hey, by the time we get to your senior year, you can be playing in an NCAA tournament. Because 4 years, your freshman will come, play, graduate, leave, and have been at a D1 institution and could have had some of the greatest seasons ever in D1 history and never been in the NCAA tournament. If there's a big criticism here, it's just kick a year off the end there. At least give some incentive for the coaches and for those institutions to recruit and go out and give the hope, dangle the carrot there for a year. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, Cal Baptist women, just wanted to make sure we got in a plug for them because they had an awesome season, and we'll have to see what they do in the NIT. Transitioning here to the NBA. Last week, we all expected this. Blake Griffin joining the Brooklyn Nets. And everybody has been saying about Brooklyn, oh my God, they are so stacked. What is the rest of the league going to do when Durant comes back and now they add Blake Griffin? Look how good Kyrie is playing. Look how good James Harden's playing. Who's going to stop them? I honestly don't think. I think the Nets are going to be good enough to get out of the East. I don't know how the rest of the pieces are going to fit together. We've been saying this since they traded for James Harden, and we still don't know. When they've had two, it works. KD and Kyrie, with all the younger guys around them, we saw that. It worked. Because everybody else was buying into their role. The Joe Harrises, the Karis LeVerts, the Dinwiddies, they all bought in. We thought, are these young guys going to want to get theirs? Because they got to the playoffs last year and they played well in the bubble. Is there going to be friction there? Is it just going to be a repeat of what happened to Kyrie in Boston? The friction with the young guys? No, the young guys bought in right away and said, hey, Kyrie, KD, you guys are top dog. We'll let you guys lead this team. Worked. Now, a lot of us disagreed with them taking a good young core and saying bye and bringing in a guy like James Harden. Because we said, how's it going to work? How are they all going to function together on the court? It's not like all three of those guys do something different where, hey, you're a point guard, I'm a big man, and you're a wing, and we can all kind of function together. They all need the ball in their hands. Now, Harden has turned into the quasi-point guard. Kyrie said, I'll play the two, you play point guard, which has worked. Harden gets the ball in his hands every possession. He does his thing. He either gets to the line or he gets into the paint, he either gets to the line, he scores, or he's kicking it back out to a lot of really talented players. Right now with Kyrie, it works when it's just him and Kyrie because Kyrie is the clear-cut second guy. What happens when KD comes back? KD is the best player. So, Harden, who is the point guard now, is going to do his thing. He's going to get his. And then he's going to have to get the ball to KD. Is Kyrie going to be okay being Ray Allen, being Chris Bosh, being that guy, Kevin Love? Hey, go stand in the corner, shoot the three. How's it going to work? How is it going to fit together? They could find a way for it to work. They could buy in. KD one night could be fine taking 6 shots. Kyrie could be fine taking 6 shots one night. That's what it will take. That's what the Celtics did in 2008. Ray Allen sacrificed a lot of his game, a lot of his touches for the sake of the team because they wanted to win. These were veteran guys in 10, 11, 12th year in the league wanting to sacrifice parts of their game to play together and get a championship, and it worked. Ray Allen gave up the most. He was the third guy because it was Paul Pierce's team. Kevin Garnett is an MVP caliber defensive player of the year. And at least he's a post player. Pierce and Allen did a lot of the same things, but the flip side was they had a guy like Rondo who would run an offense and get guys the ball. In some games, Ray Allen did go off, but by and large, if you look at the numbers, he sacrificed the most that year. That's how it works. Kyrie and KD, unless KD is going to say, well, listen, I'm going to play the 4 and I'm going to go stand in the paint, which I can't imagine. It's gonna be tough. That's why I thought James Harden going to somewhere like Milwaukee was gonna make the most sense. Ship out Chris Middleton, bring in James Harden, and let him and Giannis. What do you do? Who do you jump to? Who do you defend? How do you align your defense? If Giannis is playing in the paint and James Harden's out on the perimeter, that's a headache. It fits better. When it's just the two in Brooklyn, whether it's Harden and Durant or Harden and Kyrie or Kyrie and KD, it works. I don't know how it's going to work with all three of them on the floor. And maybe the Nets are just going to go the way of the Clippers last year. This team has had no chance to play together. The reason we're still asking these questions about their chemistry is because we don't know, because they just haven't been on the floor enough together to see anything build. So what's going to happen when they get into the playoffs? Talent alone, I really don't like or trust, especially with Embiid now a little banged up. Will he make it to the playoffs? Will he make it through the playoffs? That knee injury, luckily just a bone bruise, looked scary. When a guy that big comes down and flexes his knee like that, I thought he tore something. So how healthy will the Sixers be? Because they might be the only team that could threaten the Nets right now. The Celtics could. Who knows? We'll get into if they make moves. But the Nets are still the favorites. Talent alone may carry them to this Eastern Conference. What happens when they get to the finals and they run into a team like Utah or LA, which has kind of now been there, done that, and has LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Might have Andre Drummond. Talk about size. Denver, these teams that play hard, that play together, that are experienced, that while some of them may be younger, they're cohesive teams. What's going to happen when the Nets, who have just kind of been skating along on talent, run into a hard-playing, well-put-together basketball team? I don't know. I right now, just based off of what we've seen out of them and what we don't know still, they're looking like they're going to go the way of the Clippers. The Clippers last year, where they had all this talent, and it just didn't really fit together yet. They didn't have any chemistry. When it came to crunch time, they didn't have anything to go to. It was just like, get the ball to Kawhi. Paul George, you shoot it. And it boggled down to nobody really wanted to do anything, so it was Lou Williams just running around trying to make plays. They didn't have anything to go to, which takes time and experience to build the chemistry. Sometimes over the course of 1 or 2 years, it's really hard to do it in year one of putting a team together in any sport. It's really hard. So how good are the Nets going to be? Are they going to be unstoppable? Maybe in the East? Because I don't know. There's just not enough consistency out of any of the other teams to know if somebody could truly challenge them, just on all the other things aside from talent. The West, loaded with talented, well put together, hard playing basketball teams. So the Nets could run through the Eastern Conference and get to a finals and then lose in 5 or 6 games. And we sit there going like, wow, the Nets really just, it kind of fell apart. And what happens? What happens when times are tough and Kyrie only got 6 shots? We're seeing good Kyrie right now. We saw good Kyrie against the Celtics on Thursday night. And everybody's saying, should have kept Kyrie. It's like, really? Wasn't it a month ago this guy didn't want to show up to work and we didn't know why? And we were all ripping him? So what Kyrie are we going to get in a month from now? How's he going to be with KD coming back? We don't know. So how good are the Nets going to be? Are they going to be unstoppable? Personally, I don't think so. I think, honestly, they'll be worse. Talent will carry them, but they may be worse as a team just because they haven't had the time to play together. They certainly can make it work. I just don't know if Steve Nash and that coaching staff and if that mix of personalities is the right type to make it work. So, NBA trade deadline is coming up in about 10 days, 11 days from now. Next weekend on the program, we will be joined by Matt Murphy, our cap and draft analyst, and he's going to come on and we're going to break down this trade deadline and all the moves. So if you've got NBA trade deadline questions, bank them. Get ready. Next week, big NBA trade deadline show with Matt Murphy. And he's going to break down the numbers because we don't expect many moves to happen until after Sunday. Not much is going to happen now before the deadline and before next Sunday's show. Now, I'll say that, and lo and behold, some big trade will happen today in the middle of the afternoon. I had to quickly go to Twitter because I was like, I haven't looked at Twitter in a while. Let me go make sure nothing's happened as I'm saying this. There's not going to be any trades today. And then it's like LaMarcus Aldridge traded to the Boston Celtics. One trade to note, this is literally a minute ago from Adam Schefter. This is an NFL thing. Texans are trading Bernardrick McKinney to the Dolphins for Shaq Lawson per sources. The deal will also include a swap of late-round picks, but the focus is the linebackers. Interesting. I'd have to look at the salaries of these guys. The Dolphins and the Texans here have been doing this dance. I think, get ready, Deshaun Watson is going to the Dolphins. That's my personal belief. Everything the Dolphins have done, which is cutting guys before they need to cut them like Kyle Van Noy, clearing cap space, maneuvering their salary cap in such and such a way. Texans aren't taking phone calls anymore. Get ready. Deshaun Watson is going to the Dolphins. That's what all the smoke says to me. So that's a trade that happened. But it seems no NBA trades have gone down here in the last hour of the program. So there's a lot of stuff. The Celtics, I'm really interested in LaMarcus Aldridge. I think that'd be a really interesting get for the Celtics, depending on what they have to give up. Everything says, Danny Ainge has said they're not using the TPE at this deadline, which he has to say. He can't come. Everybody knows, though, if you don't use it now, you have to use it in the offseason because it expires. So you're not going to come out and tell people, like, no, I'm really desperate to use it now. That's poor negotiating. You just ruin your own position. So I don't know if he would use it, but I doubt they would use it on LaMarcus Aldridge, who's a 35-year-old on an expiring contract. You'd basically be renting a guy. You traded Gordon Hayward to rent a 35-year-old player who's on the back nine. Can't see that happening. Guys like Harrison Barnes, Jerami Grant, maybe even Al Horford to turn that TPE into a unfavorable contract that could be traded in the future as well. Kind of the walking, talking TPE. All this is in play. Again, there's smoke everywhere. I know if Christian was here, he'd be like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk, and they're not going to do anything because it's Danny Ainge and the Celtics, and they can't make trades. Plausible. Very plausible. We'll see what happens with all these guys. I'm not really sure. What is this team? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. What is the message going to be? Because that loss to the Nets, I said the biggest barometer for the Boston Celtics this year on whether they're good or whether they're going to or bad, whether they're going to win or they're going to lose, is Kemba Walker. Do you get Kemba or do you get Kem Bad? They got Kem Bad on Thursday and they lost. Jaylen Brown also looked like he was still at the All-Star game. His game was terrible. He had a couple of good shots, some good moments, but his stat line, awful. He certainly looked like he could have used the rest instead of playing in the All-Star game, which he even said he needed. So that's a criticism. How good is this team? It's tough. I honestly don't think the team is worth buying on. The problem is that you may have to use that TPE to get a guy like a Horford or somebody on a bad deal. Because if you go into the offseason having to use the TPE, doesn't mean much. Teams know you got to use it. So then you're going to have to overpay anyways. So I really don't know. They're it's really a rock and a hard place. The team isn't worth buying on right now. But you almost might be forced to buy because if you don't, what happens if the team just really keeps struggling? Do you have to buy to just get the team out of the funk? They're not worth it, but should you still invest to make them worth it? It's one of those weird little things. So I don't know. Matt Murphy is certainly going to have more insights in the details. LaMarcus Aldridge, that's one, like, again, I would love him in a Boston uniform, but it's probably going to have to be as a buyout. And then what kind of money would he want? Would he even want to come here that way? What does that do to the Celtics? I know they're under the hard cap right now. Do they want to jump over that? What are the penalties? That's all that. The reason we don't pay Matt, but it's the reason why we pay Matt Murphy. He's the numbers guy. He does all the math for us, and he comes on and breaks it down for us instead of me and Christian having to sit here and spend 5 minutes doing arithmetic with which no one wants to hear. That's better done off air. So those are kind of the biggest things out of the NBA this past week. Joel Embiid, like we said, he got hurt very recently. He went up for a layup, came down, his knee, flexed awfully in a really weird direction. Really scary to see. I thought the guy tore his knee. the way he reacted on the floor, and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Now, I'm not the biggest Joel Embiid fan, but any guy like that who could be an MVP, who has credible amounts of talent and has injury history, you just at some point you want to see the guy like just make it. Like, come on, man, like just can you get through a year? Like, we want to see what you can do. Especially this year, he's having the best year of his career. Looks like he's going to be out 2 weeks. Bone bruise. Miraculous, given the way he went down for a guy that big. Last note here, and this kind of comes back to the TV discussion we were having before. The NHL and ESPN have inked a deal. We all know NBC Sports is going away. Locally, they're changing gears. I don't know what the whole deal is going to be in terms of like the NBC Sports Boston and all of that. But all I know is the NHL is moving from NBC to ESPN. And a lot of people have been kind of critical of this because ESPN, after they lost hockey, basically didn't cover hockey. They really didn't give it much time. And that drew a lot of ire from people, sports people who like the NHL and want to see coverage of the NHL. And the ESPN basically was like, we ain't going to give it coverage. What's it going to do for us? ESPN should be invested now. ESPN, it's their property. The NHL is ESPN's property now. It should be in their best interest to cover the NHL now and to have more discussion and more shows and more talk about the National Hockey League. I think this is great for the NHL because they have really done a good job of growing their market and growing their brand while they've been away from ESPN. I'd say NHL has maybe elevated a little bit. It's not a niche sport. I think it, at least from a viewer standpoint, it is upgraded beyond that. I think ESPN could really help elevate it even further because hockey, especially playoff hockey, is some of the best product in the sports world. You really can't do much better than that. With how exciting it is and the fact that 8 seeds can go and win a cup. The Stanley Cup playoffs are phenomenal. And ESPN, this is great for them. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. Because that would just be so disappointing. We'll see what happens here. ESPN, coming back to it. Cable network, which is currently available on things like YouTube TV. Hulu has live sports as well. What happens if some of these networks decide, we're going to not want to be on YouTube TV. We're going to start our own streaming service. You'd have to go. Everything is on ESPN Plus now, and you have to go get ESPN Plus. That's the other deeper rabbit hole of the online world is right now there's centralized locations to go get things affordably. YouTube TV, there's kind of the clearinghouse spots. What happens when all of those networks decide we don't want to be on YouTube TV? If you want to watch CBS, you got to pay for CBS All Access, or you got to get cable, or you have to go buy an antenna. What happens when ESPN says, we don't want to do a deal with YouTube anymore? You can either get cable or you can sign up for ESPN Plus, and you have to do it directly through them. Is the consumer going to want to, at that point, pay for Prime, Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, ESPN Plus, Paramount TV, Peacock? Essentially becomes you're just paying, the price tag on that becomes like you're paying for cable anyways. That's more when I think people will jump off and just say like, done. I'll go watch at a bar. I'll let the bartender pay for it. So we all get our vaccines. So that's it. ESPN coming to NHL should be a good thing. Hopefully all these networks don't get too greedy and they don't ruin it. But that remains to be seen. So that is going to do it for the program here today. Just me here, Andrew Pizzelli, bringing you the 360 Sports Show. Christian Lauber couldn't be with us today because he is out getting his COVID vaccine, which anybody right now who is eligible should go and do. I would like to not be doing this show anymore from my back room. I would like to see Christian in person, live in person. I would like to go back to a bar and watch sporting events and go to sporting events and do a lot of the things that we've missed, that we haven't been doing because we're trying to do our part. Well, now's the time. You want to take off the mask? You want to be able to just go around freely? Do the easy thing. Like I said, go get the shot. You go in, you get stuck, you go home, you sleep, you're done. 2 weeks later, you go do it again. Easy. Easy peasy. So, really happy and excited that Christian was able to go get his vaccine today. Hopefully, I'll be getting mine soon. Hopefully, the rest of you, when eligible, can go and get yours. Do not delay in getting the COVID vaccine. So, we'd like to get back to normal and hopefully not have to be talking about pandemic related. Hopefully, not having to be talking about how potentially like the NCAA March Madness tournament could get totally thrown up in a heave and number 1 seeds could be replaced by the 100th best team in basketball if somebody tests positive for a disease. Craziness. So, yeah, Selection Sunday tonight, 6 o'clock. Tune in for the bracket. Next weekend, at least, we'll have had a couple of games under the belt, be able to talk about the bracket. Maybe once the bracket comes out and is settled, maybe we'll do a short little primer on Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe not Wednesday night. That's St. Patrick's Day. But maybe on Thursday night ahead of the game starting to give you a little bracket breakdown, as it were. So, anyways, that'll do it for the show here today, folks. Thank you for joining us. We're live every Sunday starting at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. You can just search for the 360 Sports Show on any of those platforms. Like, follow, and subscribe to never miss a show. You can also take the 360 Sports Show on the go, and if you missed us live, you can go and listen to the 360 Sports Show podcast through Sounder FM or wherever you get your podcasts from. So thank you for everybody who tuned in and listened to us live. Go out and enjoy the day. Pi Day here on 2021, March 14th. It's a beautiful day. Go and enjoy, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye-bye now.